Hey guys, and welcome back to Brexit. Brexit, England, and Eastern Europe. Yesterday I made a serious mistake here by branding Europe as a bunch of racist idiot fools. And this, however, is not true, because it's not the whole of Europe. Uh, you know, I have to take out, obviously, we have to take out countries like Germany, France, Italy, Greece. There's probably a few more. Probably Portugal. There's probably a few more. That we have to take out from what I said yesterday. So I have to apologise to all of those countries because those countries, right, treat refugees and migrants completely different to how England and Eastern Europe do. So my comments yesterday was basically meant for Eastern Europe, not for the other side of Europe, because you know as you probably know, yeah, Germany's probably one of my favourite countries in the world, right? And that is because Germany, I believe, is probably the most progressive country, right? In my lifetime, it's the most progressive country, right, that we have seen, right? From since the end of the Second World War, because at time when I was brought up, yeah, it was perfectly acceptable, right, to be very disrespectful about German issues, about German people or whatever. It was completely acceptable, right? Because was brought up in a times where often we would have unexploded World War II bombs found. So there'd be cordoned off areas all over London. This happened. I mean, it still happens sometimes up till today. It still happens, right? But it was a lot more when I was a kid, and obviously there were still buildings, right, that had been damaged from the end of the war. So 30, 40 years later, there were still buildings damaged at the end from the end of the war, right? So yeah, and then anything that was made in Germany was always it was never marked as made in Germany. It was always marked as made as foreign. So if you can remember back then, yeah, that's what that used to mean. It used to mean like foreign, right? Used to mean it was made in Germany, right? So everything about Germany was bad after the Second World War, right? But you see, Germany have gone from murdering 6 million Jewish people, right, to inviting 1 million Muslims into their country, right? So you can't get anything that's more progressive than that, right? And then obviously you've got like Greece, where people are actively, the Greeks are actively waiting there, right, to help like what you see going on the Polish border, right? The Greeks, right, and the Italians are doing that, right, for black and brown people, the same thing, right? So obviously, so as I said yesterday, it was completely wrong, right, for me to brand those countries as a bunch of damn racists, just like that the English are, right? So it's so as I said, I have to apologise to them for that, because it wasn't right for me to say that about that part of Europe. And also, welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages you sent me, and a special thanks here to everybody who signed up to our channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that have signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go through all the messages, I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all the messages for definite. So now we have tonight on the tele a concert for Ukraine. Wow. I said, these people, right, they have no shame. Absolutely none. Right? Say, what happened for a concert for the Palestinians, right, who are going through an apartheid? What happened to their concert? A concert for Yemen. Where's their concert? Right? If you had a concert, yeah, for Palestine, they'd be like, oh, well, everyone there is anti-Semitic. all the bands that are playing, they're all anti-Semitic. That's what would happen. Right? But there's a concert for the Ukraine. So yeah, okay. And today we have Partygate back, right? And because I think the police are going to start issuing fines to the people who went to the parties around Downing Street and all that, right? And you think, well, just it's taken a bit of time, hasn't it? Right? I don't see what should have taken so long, because when it was just like us, right? The fines was just issued on the spot. They didn't say, well, we're going to send you a form that you have to fill in, and you have to fill it in correctly as well, because it's a legal form. That's what those guys got. So it's just like, for them, things was a lot different. And you've got Jacob Rees-Mogg, right, who has the only man who can fit into a lady's size 10 pencil skirt, Jacob Rees-Mogg, has decided that he's going to just play this off as fluff. Right? So, this is how he described Partygate, as just fluff. You say, well, first of all, Rees-Mogg, the first thing you have to think about, to the people, it shows the level of corruption. Right? Forget the parties. It's the corruption, all the corruption behind it, right? Because we're looking at, right, the government, right, as being corrupt, okay, and then you're looking at, right, the media, right, because at these parties, there was plenty of people that was there from the media, right, so these are people, right, who was putting in their newspapers, right, house parties or fields and these things, right, that was getting raided by the police. Okay, they was putting them on the front pages, right, while they are going to parties in Downing Street themselves. Okay, so we have a corrupt media, right? So we have a corrupt government. We have a corrupt media, because the government's corrupt because they allowed these things to be covered up, and plus all the other stuff what they've done, PPE contracts and all that. But anyway, right? So they're corrupt in those sense anyway. So the media, we know, are corrupt because everybody else, right, who was having parties, or two old ladies walking in the blinking woods, sit down on a bench and have a cup of tea together, right, and next thing they've got 6 police officers around them. All those things, right, was in the media on the front pages to tell us this is what's this is what will happen if you break the rules. Right, while the media are there themselves, right, breaking the rules, right, and then we come to the police, also corrupt, because they was allowing these party goers to come into these parties knowing what's going on, right, because the police can't say to you, well, once you're in Downing Street, we don't actually know what's going on. Every part of Downing Street is covered by CCTV, okay, all of it. Right. So they've got images, videos, still images, right? They've got names, they've got everything that they needed to have, everything, right? And the police at the time was going around, right, kicking in front doors, right, arresting, fining, that singer, what's her name, right, for having a party, right, going around like fields and stopping people from having parties, right, while they're allowing, right, party goers to go into Downing Street, right. So the police also corrupt, right. So you see the 3 main institutions right there, right. Obviously the corruption comes down from the government. Right, and look, right through to the Met, especially the Met, because that's who look after them, right? So right through to the Met. So when these people are talking about fluff, but right, Jacob Rees stupid ass Mogg, right, who thinks that food banks are uplifting, right, while he's in church every week, right? Because he's so charitable, right? When these people are talking and they're talking about these things are fluff, right? And then you remember, yeah, that the Queen was sat there by herself, right? You know, one of the longest love stories in this country of two of the most famous people in this country, and the Queen sat there by herself, right? And that's just fluff, right? You know, people, right, watching their relatives die on Zoom, right? And that is just fluff. People, you know, I saw, two brothers at a crematorium, and you know, their dad had passed away, and the mum was sat there in the middle, and the two brothers, but one was over there, because obviously social distancing, so they couldn't be near the mum or anything. And you know, it got to a stage where the mum must have got really upset, so the two brothers just come over to cuddle the mum. And I can remember the people from the crematorium jumping up, oh, you can't do that, you know, don't, no, right? And he said, well, that's just fluff, right? And then, you know, we turn to the 13-year-old little boy who died, right, quite early in the pandemic, right? He died in hospital by himself. I think he was from either Brixton or Croydon, and he died in hospital by himself, right? And now, you know, obviously it's very hard for any parent to lose a child, but you know, for them not to be there when, you know, in any other circumstances, they would have actually been there with the child in the hospital. They would have been there, because you know, most children, if they die in hospital, the parents are generally there, because you know, most parents, if they find that their child's in hospital, you know, they're there within the hour. As fast as they can get there, they get to the hospital. Whatever they're doing, they drop it and they get straight to the hospital, right? So on a normal basis, they would have been there, you know, to be with their child, right? But obviously they couldn't because of the COVID. And you know, we just say, well, for Rees-Mogg, it's just fluff, you know. And this is what I don't understand: why working class people, right, will vote for the Tories, right? The Tories, right? This what Rees-Mogg said about fluff, right? That's absolutely who the Tories are. They are callous, right? They're insensitive, right? These are nasty, disgusting individuals, right? Because your true Tory, right, is Jacob Rees-Mogg, right? And you know, the truth is, right, you know, the working classes in this country, that's not who they really are. And I don't understand why they follow the path of people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, right, who can just, you know, dismiss, you know, all the suffering that people have been through over COVID, right, as just trivial fluff. It's nothing. It's just fluff, you know. And I don't understand why the working classes would ever vote for people, right, who would just say, well, you know what, let the bodies pile high. I don't understand why you would vote for those type of people. And now we have Will Smith has apologized. And you know, should Chris Rock, you know, he's apologized, and he said that he was unacceptable and inexcusable, and he's bloody well right what he done, right? And you know, it wasn't a punch, it was like a slap, or like, well, it wasn't a bitch slap. Right, because a bitch slap, yeah, it would have to be if you bitch slap a man, right, is backhanded. That's a bitch slap, right? So this was more like a clap, a box, right? You know, and but you know, on analysing it, because I have analysed it, that's how I know. That's how I know, because when you look at his hand coming down, you see his hand is like open, and but then obviously when you analyse it and then you look over and you see like the reaction, right? Because for me, I don't think that he insulted his wife. I don't think that's what he done. I don't think that's what he done. Do you know what I mean? Because if he insulted his wife, you know, because he did say something about Will Smith, and so if he had insulted his wife, he would say, well, yeah, I remember Will Smith, and then say, yeah, and maybe, yeah, your bald-ass alopecia suffering wife, yeah, can play the next Kojak or G.I. Joe, right? That's insulting his wife, right? And if a man said that, Will Smith would have the right to get up there and smack the black off his ass, right? If he said something like that, right? But it was for me, it was a very tactful joke that I don't think should have had that reaction. I think and it was more, that was more Jade's reaction, because Will initially was laughing, right? And when you looked at Jade, she was not. She was like Queen Victoria, not amused with any of it, right? And obviously that's what Will Smith has had to react to, And I mean, they've already got like an open marriage thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's quite obvious that who wears the trousers within the relationship, right? So it was I mean, it was a really bad mistake for Will Smith to make, because Will's had this he's had this very squeaky clean, right? Doesn't use the N word, doesn't use like profanities in his lyrics or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? And like he's and he's like and he's 30 years for this Oscar, right? And I mean, this has worked out very well for the Academy, right? the Academy, yeah, was actually, because I don't think anyone was really interested in these Oscars, right? We did have like a couple of years ago where I think Jade started the hashtag Oscars too white, I believe, a few years back, right? So and then look, as soon as the people then put them there, the next thing he's up there clapping a man in his face. So okay, right? Perhaps there might have been a reason why they didn't want your ass there in the first place. Right? And the government have started to seize ships from P&O ferries and impound them so that they can't. And what really amazed me about that, right, is the fact that they've brought in all those conditions so that these people can behave in this way. They've brought all those conditions in, right? And then when people use the conditions what they brought in, they're like, oh, yeah, the conditions there, we didn't expect you to use them. It's much like the hostile environment, right? Because the hostile, believe it or not, but the hostile environment was brought in by Labour, right? Because remember our last Labour government was just like Tory light, but they brought in the hostile environment, right? But then when the Tories took over, the Tories decided, oh no, we can use that in this way. Right, we can send vans around London saying, if you're illegal, you need to come out. Right, we can do that. Right, or we can, or we can start just deporting, West Indian people who have been here for 40 years, but because they haven't bothered to apply for a passport, then we can just deport them. Right. So there was 40, 50, 60 years in fact, right? So they was just so that's how the Tories decided to use it, and Labour was like, well, yeah, we brought it in, but we wasn't expecting to use it like that. So you see, between the two of them, right, won't make any difference. If Keir Starmer, right, was made Prime Minister tomorrow, it's not going to make no difference for the working classes, not at all. It's not going to make no difference for the working classes. Right? They're going to go along the same lines as where the Tories was. Right, so for us, this the politics what Keir Starmer have got is much like Tony Blair's. So it's not going to make no difference for us. Right. So now obviously the government, they're trying to force P&O, right, to take back all their workers. That's what they're really trying to do. Right. Whether or not P&O just say, we'll just pull out. We'll just pull out. We won't bother having anything to do with trading with you anymore, right? And then obviously you've got like DP World, which is run by the same people who run P&O, right? So whether or not they just say, okay, well look, I'll tell you what we'll do. We're just going to pull out of Britain, because I think they've got some of the contracts for the for those the new trade ports, the free ports, right? I think they've got the contracts for those. Right, so for some of them anyway, right. So whether or not they just say, because remember they are from Dubai, so these people are these are billionaires, right. So if they want, they can just say, well, We'll just pull that out, and we'll just pull that all right, which puts probably another 4 or 5 thousand jobs at risk if they do that. If they was to pull out, so the government's got to they've got to really step very carefully in how they deal with this, right? Roman Abramovich has been poisoned. He was doing the negotiations, and apparently he's been poisoned, right? But a lot of the media saying no, and to be honest, I've just seen the because they're saying that some of the Ukrainian negotiators was poisoned as well, and the Ukrainian negotiators have said no, this is just it's all fiction. So people are saying, well, they believe it might be Roman Abramovich who's probably trying to make the story up. Say, well, look what Putin done to me, I'm poisoned too. I need my Chelsea Football Club to help me get through this, and maybe my yacht to help me get through, right? So they're saying maybe the story is just a one big joke set up by Roman Abramovich, right, to try and get Chelsea Football Club back, right? And we got Joe Biden has rolled back on calling for Putin to be removed from office, right? No, he hasn't. He's still Joe Biden said no, Putin shouldn't stay in office, right? Which was the right thing to say, because I've never known them to have world leaders that to have done this type of thing, right? Black or brown world leaders especially who's done this type of thing, and for them say, well, actually no, you can stay, if you stop, you can stay in power. There's no way that Putin can stay in power. The White House did try and say, oh no, he didn't mean to imply that he should be removed. And Joe Biden just come out and said yesterday, no, that's exactly what I implied. Right? Which for me was very good, because I really thought that he was just gonna. I thought he was just gonna stay with, actually, I didn't really say, I didn't mean that, but he said no, the man needs to be removed. He needs to go. Right, it's not us that should remove him. It should be the Russian people who remove him. But the man needs to go, right? Because remember that how things ended up for Saddam Hussein or Gaddafi, right? Gaddafi ended up with a broom up his backside, which can't have been very nice, right? And the some Brexit news, because I'm already 7 minutes over my time what I was supposed to do. So now we've got some Brexit news. And the government have now started to admit, you know what, I think we fucked up. Because Rishi Sunak is just like, our overseas trade is really, it's destroying our economy. Because that's what happens. When you put all that red tape in front of your businesses, right, it can only destroy your economy. There's nothing else it can do. I mean, what else can it do when your businesses, right, can't operate overseas? Right, and you take the ability, because you've got to make business as easy as possible, right? Business has got to be free flowing, right? It's got to be like a river, right? You want it to be as easy as possible. You don't want to start putting red tape in front of your businesses, because you're going to kill them all off. And that's what's happening in this country, because when these government ministers were saying to people, well, the best thing you can do is maybe set up your business in Europe. That was really bad advice. I mean, I was saying at the time that advice, right, is much like saying, what we're going to do is we're going to sell off all of our hospital buildings, right, and then we're going to rent them back, right? Bad advice. That's really bad, right? But that's what the last Labour Party done there, right? And the Tories have sold off all the all of our our water, gas, electric, trains. They've sold it all off. All of it's gone, right? And they would just be like, well, what the British people really want is not to own the gas companies or the electric. This is all dirty, it's all filthy industries. The British people don't want to own these things. Say, don't we? Really? Oh, perhaps someone should have told me that the British people don't want to own this shit, right? But that's what they will just tell you, right? And I don't understand, but for some reason, this stupid ass working racist motherfucking people in this country, right, will go along with that. Oh yeah, owning things like your water and your gas, your electric and trains, right, that, right, is hard left. Hard left. Don't want to do that. We don't want to be. We don't want to own that stuff. No. We want all that to go. We want all that to be in private hands. So all the money that's earned by that can go into private companies, right? Who will not, right, make payments on the infrastructure. So that's the best way of doing that. Right? So you see, Labour, how your Tony Blair's type Labour act, because remember they sold off all the hospital buildings and then rented them back. The Tories, right, sold off all of our utility companies. Right, so so all those guys, they're all the same. Right, and you see the other day when Lydia was asked about a universal basic income, and she just said no, no, that's not something that no, that's not, no, because it's because they can't sort out they can't sort out she said, well, we can't sort out the fact that people like me will get it, and I don't need it. I said, well, what about all the working class people who do need it? So you see that that Labour will be much the same as the Tories. It's not going to be any change. Not going to be no change at all, because this is not a progressive. This will not be a progressive Labour Party. This will be a Labour Party who just say for me, they should be buying back, right, all of the utility companies, taking them back into public ownership. That's what they should be doing. But they're not. I mean, I even heard a story yesterday that they're selling off the gas pipes now. Just the pipes for £4 billion. They're selling off the gas pipes, right, to some banking company or something like that. You know what I mean? You just think to yourself, really? So the gas, I say, well, because we're obviously going to stop. We're going to try and stop using gas, right? But we'll say, well, so why would a company be so interested in buying off the gas? The gas pipes, the pipes. Anyway, right? Yeah, so Brexit has hit the country's overseas trade really hard. It slammed it into a wall. Right? But a think tank has said Britain must seize its chance to repair relations with the EU. That's what the think tank said. Okay. Well, the only way Britain's going to do that, right, is by somehow getting themselves back trading in the EU. Right, so obviously back joining the single market or whatever. But that's where the Tories are. That now. See how the Tories are talking now? Because Rishi Sunak was up in front of some MPs yesterday, right, and he said, well, it's our overseas trade that's destroying our economy. And he just said that's because of Brexit. So right now they're linking these things to Brexit. Right? And say it's about time, because Boris Johnson has been getting off, because obviously COVID come along, so that put things with Brexit back a bit, right? And then straight after COVID, obviously COVID hasn't even done yet because the numbers are increasing, but straight after that, right, move straight into a war. Right, so that again has covered up things for him. But now Rishi Sunak has got to a stage where he's just got to start admitting, actually, Brexit's destroying the country. So we're there, right? And that's a good thing. And I am nearly 15 minutes over the time that I set myself. Really, that's not good. Right. Anyway, guys, this is By Any Means Necessary. I'm the MC John Ribbs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.